Okay, y'all. Oh, good evening. All right. We appear to be a full council. Mr. Harris, this latest document you've sent me, that was just before the cutoff for written public comment. So that's the last one we have.
No, there was one more that I sent you after that. So I sent you two of those. I sent one about 4 and another one a little after 5.
Yes, that's the one I recall. Okay. And now we're getting into the meeting, so we'll just go ahead. All right. Hey, good evening, everybody. I hereby call this September 8th meeting of the Council of the City of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, to order. We'll begin with calling the roll of members. Mr. Harris.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Royo.
Here.
Ms. Bakay.
Here.
Ms. Craig.
Here.
Ms. Diaz.
Here.
Mr. Garcia Molina.
Here.
Mr. Soto.
Here.
And President Smith-Waddell.
Here. Thank you, Mr. Harris. We'll move then to the approval of the minutes for the September 1st committee meeting. I'll hear a motion.
Actually, Mr. President, it would be for the August 25th.
25th and 27th. You're right. As soon as it escaped my mouth. Thank you, Mr. Harris. I will hear a motion to approve the August 25th and August 27 minutes.
Motion to approve.
Oh boy.
Second.
Got motions and seconds. Love that. Council comments. All right, hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Royo.
Aye.
Ms. Bakay.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Garcia Molina.
Aye.
Mr. Soto.
Aye.
And President Smith-Waddell.
Aye. Thank you, Mr. Harris. Proclamations, honors, awards, and resolutions of recognition. Do we have any, Mr. Harris?
We do not tonight, Mr. President.
All right. That moves us into our first public comment period, reserved for citizens who have contacted the clerk prior to the meeting. Do we have any, Mr. Harris?
Not for general public comment, Mr. President.
All right. Reports requested by council, Mr. Harris.
We have none tonight.
All right. In that case, we move to reports of committees of council from the September 1st meeting. We will begin with the Public Safety Committee. Councilor Garcia Molina.
Thank you, Mr. President. The Public Safety Committee actually did not meet.
All right. We'll move then to the Public Works Committee. Councilor Soto.
Thank you, Council President. The Public Works Committee did meet on September 2nd. There was one item on the agenda, which was resolution number 45, amending the winter agreement with PennDOT. And I'll go more into it when it comes up on the agenda.
Excellent. Thank you, Councilor Soto. We move then to the Economic Development Committee. Councilor Arroyo.
Yes, Mr. President, we did meet to discuss resolution number 42, 2020, which is calling on Congress to support the creation of a national infrastructure bank. That resolution will be presented later tonight in the agenda. And that was all.
Thank you, Councilor Arroyo. Finance, Councilor Bakay.
Thank you, Mr. President. Finance Committee did meet. We had one item on the agenda. It was a presentation from Bob May from Lancaster EMS. In his report, Mr. May detailed services provided in 2020 so far, including a geographic and type breakdown of service calls for EMS. He also provided a financial breakdown of Lancaster EMS with emphasis on municipal funding and also information on how COVID-19 has affected Lancaster EMS. In sum, Lancaster EMS serves 21 municipalities. 13 of them provide any sort of financial support to Lancaster EMS. They are requesting $150,000 in 2021 from the city of Lancaster, which is an unchanged amount from the previous 4 years. No decisions were made on that at that time. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Councilor Bakay. We move then to the Community Planning Committee. Councilor Craig.
Thank you, Council President. We had 4 items on the agenda, one being Bill number 10, 2020, allowing for the appointments of alternate members to the Lancaster Planning Commission. 2, the review of the Historical Commission recommendation for demolition and new construction at 329, 331 East New Street. Also, administration resolution number 43, approving adoption of an amendment to the city's Act 537 official sewage facility plan to include a revised plan for the 4 to 18 West King Street project. And also administration resolution number 44, 2020, approving adoption of an amendment to the city's Act 537 official sewage facility plan to include the 548 New Holland Avenue project. And we also discussed UPMC, which will come up later on the agenda. That is all I have.
All right, thank you, Councilor Craig. We move finally to the Personnel Committee. Councilor Diaz.
Yes, President. The Personnel Committee met on September 1st, 2020 to discuss nomination of Reverend Kenneth Weeks to be appointed to the Planning Commission to fill a vacancy position from September 8th, 2020 to December 31st, 2024. We also include a nomination for DJ Ramsey to be reappointed to the Sign Commission for a 3-year term from August 31st, 2020 to August 31st, 2023. And we also have a nomination for Susan Lackman to be reappointed to the Board of Health for a 5-year term from March 31st, 2020 to March 31st, 2025. So I would like to make a motion to approve, and also would like to make it as a whole to vote for all 3. And that's all I have.
So do we have a second for Councilor Diaz's motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Council comments. Are there any comments from the public on these appointments? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Arroyo,
Aye.
Ms. Baker,
Aye.
Ms. Craig,
Aye.
Ms. Diaz,
Aye.
Mr. Garcia Molina,
Aye.
Mr. Soto,
Aye.
and President Smith Waddell.
Aye. All right then. So that concludes meetings of council committees. Thank you, Councilor Diaz. We move then into our legislative agenda, where we begin with the Heritage Conservation and Historic Districts. Mr. Harris.
Yes, Mr. President. Considering the following applications and recommendations from the Historical Commission and Historical Architectural Review Board for improvements to properties within the Heritage Conservation and Historic Districts. The first of those is Hammering Key Properties, owner of 329, 331 East New Street, proposed demolition of one-story garages on Grove Lane to allow for new construction on the site. Hammering Key Properties, owner of 329, 331 East New Street, proposed construction of a new 3-story multifamily dwelling. Both of those applications were recommended for approval by the Historical Commission. And Jonathan Groff, owner of 660 West Vine Street, requests removal of aluminum siding from a brick building and removal of a ground floor window to be replaced by a garage opening. And Ash Custom Homes, owner of 535, 537 Church Street, requests removal of metal cladding panels around the building's ground floor storefront. And those 2 applications were both recommended for approval by the Historical Architectural Review Board.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. If it pleases council, I would like to take the Historical Commission items together and the HARB items together. So we'll two motions if possible. So can I have a motion on the historical commission items?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Have a motion and a second on these two items. Council comments. And from the public. All right, hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Royo,
Aye.
Ms. Beke,
Aye.
Ms. Craig,
Aye.
Ms. Diaz,
Aye.
Mr. Garcia Molina,
Aye.
Mr. Soto,
Aye.
and President Smith Waddell.
Aye. Thank you. I'll now hear a motion on the two HARB items on the agenda.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Council comments? And from the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Royo,
Aye.
Ms. Beke,
Aye.
Ms. Craig,
Aye.
Ms. Diaz,
Aye.
Mr. Garcia Molina,
Aye.
Mr. Soto,
Aye.
and President Smith Waddell.
Aye. All right. That should resolve the Heritage Conservation and Historic Districts, which moves us to ordinances for final passage. Real quickly, if it please council, Mr. Harris, would it throw off your workflow in any way if we were to take bill number 9 first?
No, I think we could do that.
Great. If it's all right with council, we'll take bill number 9 first before we dig into the rezoning piece. Mr. Harris, bill number 9.
An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Lancaster, amending Chapter 55 of the Code of the City of Lancaster, Officers and Employees, Article 4, Council, Section 5512, Rules and Regulations, Subpart C, Time of Meetings, to change the time of regularly scheduled meetings of the City Council from 7:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. or such other times as may be approved by majority vote of council, providing for the repeal of inconsistent ordinances, providing for the severability of the ordinance, and providing that the ordinance shall take effect in accordance with Pennsylvania law. The title, Mr. President.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilors, I believe we have a draft floating, but I would welcome a motion to amend the ordinance as presented to limit the times in which or to which a meeting can be changed. So say, for example, no earlier than say 5 on a given day for a regularly scheduled meeting, and no later than say 9 or 10 p.m. On a given day for a regularly scheduled meeting. But that would just be that would be my suggestion and a motion that I would invite if it please any counselor to make such a motion.
I would motion to make that amendment, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Beke. Could you clarify beginning and closing times for said amendment?
Correct. I would motion that we make meetings on weekdays no earlier than 5 p.m. and no later than 9 p.m., Mr. President.
Great, as applies to regularly scheduled meetings of council. Is there a second for Councilor Beke's motion?
Second.
All right, so we have a motion and a second specifically for the amendment. Council comments on the amendment. Comments from the public on the amendment itself. Hearing none, Mr. Harris, and councilors, this is a vote on the amendment.
Mr. Roya,
Aye.
Ms. Beke,
Aye.
Ms. Craig,
Aye.
Ms. Diaz,
Aye.
Mr. Garcia Molina,
Aye.
Mr. Soto,
aye,
and President Smith Waddell.
Aye. All right. Now, council comments on the bill as amended. Comments from the public on the bill as amended. All right. Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Roya,
Aye.
Ms. Beke,
Aye.
Ms. Craig,
Aye.
Ms. Diaz,
Aye.
Mr. Garcia Molina,
Aye.
Mr. Soto,
aye,
and President Smith Waddell.
Aye. All right, everyone, I'll mention this again at the end of the meeting. And Mr. Harris, please clarify, this would apply for the beginning with the first meeting in October?
Yes, Mr. President, our ordinances take effect 20 days after passage. So this would take effect for the meeting of the October 13th, that regularly scheduled meeting.
All right, everyone, the October 13th meeting of council will be scheduled for 6:30 in the evening. Hopefully that will get us in and out a little earlier. And now we move on to, with gratitude for everybody's forbearance, Bill number 8, 2020. Mr. Harris.
An ordinance of the Lancaster City Council amending Chapter 300 of the Lancaster City Code zoning map to change the zoning classification for the property located on College Avenue, tax parcel number 3354194800000 from HC Hospital Complex District to MU Mixed Use District. The title, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. I'll hear a motion.
Motion to approve.
second,
We have a motion and a second. Councilor Craig.
Thank you, Council President. UPMC Pinnacle Lancaster requests a zoning map amendment of the former hospital located at 210 College Avenue, formerly known as St. Joseph Hospital, and bounded by West Chestnut College Avenue, Marietta Avenue, and West End Avenue. This proposed rezoning does not affect any other parcels. The rezoning has unanimously recommended for approval by the City and County Planning Commission. City Council had first reading of the ordinance on August the 11th, held a public hearing pursuant to state law on the 27th. This rezoning would allow for future mixed-use development that may include residential, commercial, and office use. If approved, this ordinance would only rezone the parcel. It would not approve a particular design or allow construction to proceed. Many more public meetings and approvals would be required for this site to be developed. That is all I have for that.
Thank you, Councilor Craig. I do not believe that there will be additional presentation from the petitioner or developers this evening, though they are on hand to answer any questions that we might have, councilors, and I see them there in the meeting, as well as our own CPED director, Mr. Deltz. I do believe, before we proceed, that our solicitor is here to certify or attest something for us. Oh, I'm seeing Mr. Deltz. Ms. Strazo.
Good evening, everybody. Sorry for the interruption. I just want to make sure I was here in case there were any questions asked.
Thank you. Mr. Dels, am I correct that Mr. Handwerger is on hand to attest something for us?
Mr. Handwerger did provide a review of a series of documents over the course of many days, completed that review today. I can speak to that particular issue tonight. If we get into any deep legal questions, I think that he is on call, so we could bring him in if we need him. But I think for most questions, I believe that I or the mayor could respond.
Okay, well, if we have an emergency, we'll break open that particular glass.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Delps, would you just be so kind? I know it's of interest to a couple of council members and myself. Would you just please be so kind as to briefly overview that?
Sure, Council President, are you speaking about the documents that we've reviewed over the last many days?
Yes.
Yes, well, let me start with the high level, and then if there are any questions, we can dive in. As we spoke about in previous meetings before council, this has really been a long haul, this planning process, and I thank all of you for the patience and the fortitude. I know this is, I think, the fourth time that we're before council. One of the things that we really tried to focus on in the last couple of meetings, at least from the standpoint of the city administration, is that this has been a successful process from the standpoint of city planning. We started with a concept late last year. UPMC and prospective developers spoke with the administration about the desire to rezone the site. First started with the applicant, and then following that, we had some additional conversations with prospective developers. Throughout that process, we were able to highlight some of the priorities that we found would be important for a mixed-use site at 210 College Avenue. Following that, the rezoning proposal went before the City Planning Commission, and over the course of 2 meetings before City Planning Commission, there were a series of priorities that were highlighted through that process. Probably the most important of which was an affordable housing component. Following that engagement, both with the city administration and with the City Planning Commission, UPMC voluntarily agreed to place restrictions on the 210 College Avenue site to ensure that we would be able to develop a portion of this site with affordable housing going ahead. And when I say a portion of the site, I should distinguish that we're talking about 0.75 acres, which is a piece of the larger site at 210 College Avenue. And in addition to that, and separate from that, UPMC has also agreed to offer 2 additional satellite parcels at 213 College Avenue and at 913 Wheatland Avenue for additional residential housing development. So all of that has necessitated a whole series of legal documents to make sure that all of that is in place in advance of deliberation and vote tonight. And pleased to report that both Mr. Handwerger and I have reviewed several documents carefully and have found that that those documents are complete and have been executed prior to tonight. So I think that we're in good shape at the moment. I know that Ms. Shank is here, the counsel for UPMC as well. If you have specific questions about any of the legal aspects of those documents. Is that a good start, Council President? I don't want to get too far down the rabbit hole without providing an overview first.
No, that is good, Mr. Delps.
Okay.
Councilors, if I may address you for a moment. This is, as we all know, something that we have been considering, thinking, and talking to the public about for the entirety of what has been a remarkably complicated and chaotic year. And so here we are. So I would just invite you at this moment to ask any questions that you have. As was noted, there will be no additional specific presentation this evening, but everybody is available to address any questions, be they legal, conceptual, planning, zoning, that you might have. And I would encourage you to avail yourselves of this opportunity. Once we finish that, I will read the, I believe it is 13, I could be wrong, public comments submitted in writing ahead of time into the record. And then we will open it up to the public for comments to be made on the call. And then we will have a vote. And then we'll proceed with the rest of our legislative agenda and resolutions for the evening. Does that make sense to everyone? All right, council comments.
I do have a question, two questions actually, Mr. President.
Of course.
Chris, would you mind explaining to me a little bit about the legalities around the deeds and how that's into play here? I know you sent us a document, but I would appreciate just you following a little bit into that for me.
Yes, one of the documents that UPMC produced is a declaration. It's essentially a deed restriction that has reserved 0.75 acres of the site specifically for affordable housing. As you might imagine, there are a lot of different scenarios that are contemplated in a document of this nature. I think the most important aspect to highlight here is that the affordable housing restriction is put in place regardless of whether Washington Place Equities or HDC moves forward with their development.
When it comes to affordable housing, I know we've had a lot of discussions here around the definition of that. What is the definition of affordable housing within the legal document that's binding them to that?
The definition in the legal document is purely just that right now. It says affordable housing. It's meant to be a placeholder because that definition will take on more specificity once HDC takes title of the property and proceeds with the affordable housing credits. Then it's governed by the LIHTC rules for the redevelopment of that site or multiple sites.
And the last thing I don't know if this is necessarily a question for you, but could you also help me kind of make sense of the timeline in terms of what they're preparing for and the application that they're needing to prep for? I believe that was part of the communication.
That's right. And I think it would be valuable to bring in Dana Hanchin and Claude Hicks to speak to the application process. That's something that they're experts in. But based on our communications, I know we're trying to move as quickly as possible because we've anticipated that the LIHTC application will be due first quarter of 2021.
Great. Thank you, Chris. And thanks,
Sure.
Amber, for bringing them on.
Sure. So I think I hit the maybe key point there, but it might be valuable for Dana and Claude to speak to it because they've been through this process several times before.
Great.
Sure. This is Claude Hicks from HGC. This is a process in which when we submit it to Pennsylvania Housing Finance Agency, it has to literally be a project that is financed, that has site control, that has all of the architectural requirements. It must be a project that is, for lack of a better word, completely baked. The agency then looks at it, grades it, points it, takes a long time to answer or ask a lot of questions back and forth before it makes a decision on which projects in the state are allocated tax credits.
Great, that makes sense to me, Claude. Would you be able to, when it comes to the specifics of the timeline, is there an application closing period for this year that you're looking to try to meet? I'm trying to understand also, in addition to the justification of the rezoning, the implications of making the decision tonight. So I wanted to know a little bit about how that timeline and how you're currently going through the process and how that's impacted.
So, Zavi, this is Dana. I just wanted
Dana.
to share a little bit about that. Typically, the PHFA application process opens up in November. And what has happened, however, is because of COVID and the challenges with the agency moving its existing projects forward, they have pushed that deadline to early next year. What we have is a window of early next year where the application process will open, which everybody in our industry is trying to determine exactly what date that is. And the range we have is it could be anywhere between January and March. But no specific date has been released by PHFA at this time, but we need to be prepared, basically going out of the corner of the new year to submit an application. All but 4 tax credits need to be lined up for that project.
And then I'm imagining that if this doesn't go through and the aspect of it being completely baked is part of the zoning, then next year really would be the new window, right?
That's correct.
If that's available, okay. That's great. I appreciate that, Claude and Dana. And then I guess, sorry, Mr. President, for asking another question, but I know that this is an uphill battle for you all as well, just because affordable housing is such a hard thing to tackle, which is why so many people do not, and why I respect that you are committed to doing this within this project. I also want to learn from you all directly, like as council, how do we, moving forward, if it should move in this direction, how does council support you all in making sure that the affordable housing component remains feasible?
That's a great question. And I'm sure Dana will probably add on to my remarks. If you think about it this way, there are a lot of good projects across the state. What usually stands out is the community's desire and willingness to accept the affordable housing within their community. So the political support that you can put behind this application, direct conversation with PHFA, the support of all of you and all of the local legislators and politicians in the area is critical to what we call the objective points in the application. That is going to be a key to getting it approved.
Got it. Great.
And I would also add that, tax credits provide 75 to 80% of a development project if they're 9%. So the other portion of the money that we need to raise. So we are looking for gap financing for that 15% of that $15 million. So we're looking at private resources as well as public resources to be able to fill that gap. So we will be seeking resources from the city through an RFP process for home dollars to help assist with that.
I apologize. Could you repeat those specific numbers for me, Dana?
Sure. Low-income housing tax credits provide about 75 to 80% of a project if they're 9% credits. So we need to fundraise for the balance of that. So this is a $15 million project. So as soon as if we receive a favorable vote this evening, we will begin fundraising immediately for that gap financing between now and basically January. We need to have all those resources in place.
Awesome. Thank you.
And just to add to that, the RFP we are anticipating for the federal home dollars will be made available in the beginning of October. And that obviously is open to other projects. And we know that this will likely receive an application for this project as well.
Okay, great. I guess the only last thing that I do have is just because we haven't had an opportunity to directly talk about this, but do you all believe that it's feasible within your realm to make this happen? Like, I just wanted to like hear it directly that like you
Well,
believe that you
we would not be here today if we didn't think so. We do have a
Okay.
50-year history of providing affordable housing in the county and now in 3 states. And Claude and I combined have about 50 years experience in being able to develop affordable housing.
Cool.
So we are very excited about the opportunity to bring this housing to the city of Lancaster, and developers don't take no for an answer. We'll keep finding another way to make it till it happens.
I appreciate it. Mr. President, that is the only comments and questions that I had for now. Thank you. And thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Councilor Soto, you are muted.
I'd like to ask Mr. Delta a question, if possible.
Of course.
Mr. Delta, just so I understand on the deed restriction, once the deed restriction is placed on for that partial, for the affordable housing piece, that stays in place no matter who ends up with this property, whether it goes down this road or a year down the road, correct?
And Mr. Soto, I just want to make sure that I understand. Are you asking about the 0.75 acres that is on the hospital site itself?
Yeah.
Yes. So yes, that deed restriction will remain in place regardless.
And no matter what UPMC decides to do with this property, whether it's a year, 5 years, 15 years down the road, that deed is there permanently for as long as that property is there, correct?
If WPE, Washington Place Equities, and HDC do not move forward with the project, that restriction still remains with UPMC. So, we're very hopeful that that would not happen. But if for some reason the agreement was terminated with Washington Place Equities and HDC, then the most likely thing that would happen is UPMC would seek another developer, but that deed restriction would apply to a new developer who would develop that site.
Thank you. That answers my question. That's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Soto. Mr. Delfs, an interesting question that has just occurred to me. Since affordable housing is in the evaluated legal documents as a placeholder, if for some reason in some ridiculous hypothetical situation, since we're just humoring me now, that language somehow needed to be enforced, since it is in fact a legal agreement, what might the parameters be? What might a legal evaluator or court reasonably determine as being affordable or not affordable housing? Since am I making sense as a question? Like, yeah.
Yeah, you are. And Council President, I feel like I probably didn't answer that question as well as I could have before. I had a few legal documents in front of me, so trying to find the right definition at the right time was a little difficult, but we actually did spend some time specifying the legal definition here. And where we landed is that the legal definition from the deed is anything that qualifies for affordable housing tax credit.
And that deed restriction is in place for 25 years.
Correct.
Bear with me just a second. If there are any other council questions while I fiddle with something, now would be the time. No, you guys are just gonna leave me hanging. Great. So, so when you say affordable housing tax credit, you mean they would have to qualify for LIHTC through PHFA, or is there another tax credit that you might be referring to?
That would be the same.
Right. Okay. Just want to allow for the possibility that there are things that I'm not aware of. Okay. I'll hand it back to council. Any other questions or comments, y'all? Okay. Now is the part of every one of these meetings we've had about I'm not going to read the whole parcel number, the former St. Joe's site. when you get to hear me just read for 15 minutes. So buckle up for that. I will now be reading into the record the public comments that have been submitted ahead of time. Before I begin, I just want to check. Council, will you let me know if I can be heard clearly?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you. Just check to make sure I have the latest document. I do. All right, we'll begin. Maria Cool on the 600 block of 3rd Street says, I encourage city council members to vote to rezone the 250 College Ave site to be mixed use for the project proposed by Washington Place Equities and HDC Mid-Atlantic. I am particularly interested in the fact that it includes affordable rental housing and will include space for businesses and retail establishments. David Knoll from the 800 block of West Walnut Street says, I have attended and listened to the previous discussions at the Planning and Council Committee meetings. As my wife and I live across the street from this property, we remain convinced that City Council should proceed to vote to approve the requests to rezone this property to mixed use from its current status of hospital complex. Without this change, many of the opportunities presented in the discussions and proposals on the table are not possible, leaving the property in danger of becoming a blight. Mr. Bill Hannigan from the 300 block of College Avenue says, the private property at the northwest corner of College Avenue and West Walnut Street has been home to my family since 1989. Pending the development of the adjacent former UPMC property, on-street parking will be a 24-hour nightmare with the addition of 400 to 500 new residents plus commercial ventures. My questions. What steps will minimize the disruptions to neighbors during redevelopment of the former UPMC buildings? Sounds and fallout of construction deliveries, demolition, and reconstruction should be confined to mid-morning and mid-afternoon hours. What steps can compel Lancaster Parking Authority to enforce the existing 2-hour and permit parking rules that apply to neighborhood residents? The 2-hour rule was enforced only 2 times on drivers in my family in decades of experience. Will the 2-hour parking rule be extended to the south side of the 800 block of West Walnut Street? Turnover of parked vehicles will be crucial where the rule applies to differentiate between housing tenants versus housing visitors and commercial patrons. What restrictions will control traffic on Alley 30 as identified by neighbors? It narrows to 1 vehicle width on the south end. It narrows to barely 1 vehicle width on the north end. The background. Prior to the closing of UPMC, little to no regard was given for street sweeping 2-hour and permit parking policies posted in the 800 block of West Walnut Street. Prime offenders were UPMC employees, vendors, and visitors, based on my witness of more than 30 years. Employees could not be bothered to park on the surface lot reserved for their use at the corner of West Walnut Street and Northwest End Avenue. People with key cards found easy access to the hospital doorway opposite my kitchen door. They gained the quickest elevator service versus using the College Avenue and other entrances. People with and without key cards overwhelmingly exited the hospital opposite my kitchen door. They gained the quickest path to their cars parked at curbside, as well as employee parking at West Walnut and West End. I got belligerent responses from employees wearing hospital IDs and taking cigarette breaks along my sidewalk or in their cars. I got nowhere with pleading for them to use the employee-provided parking and to stop the smoking at my kitchen door. I got a different response by saying, okay, let's go talk to your supervisor. That stopped the unacceptable behavior, albeit only until their next craving for nicotine. Visitors disregarded my pleas, and one group of smokers asked ironically to be excused because they were visiting a family member dying of lung cancer. Meanwhile, their secondhand tobacco smoke permeated the first and second floor rooms of my home. Private property rights and parking rights and responsibilities must be respected with the redevelopment of the former UPMC. James Eby, pardon me, from the 700 block of North Mary Street says, My comments address all the major residential projects coming to the city for development approvals. The LGH project on North Queen Street, the Landis Homes project on West King Street, the recently announced apartment house at North Queen and Chestnut Streets, and the College Avenue development. I believe that each of these projects as currently proposed will contribute positively to the city. What I would like to see the city and all these developers work harder at is incorporating an affordable housing component into each of these housing projects. Affordable means that monthly housing cost would not exceed 30% of income for a family earning 50% of the city's median income by family size for rental housing. In the case of for sale housing, it would be 80% of that median income. A goal of incorporating a 10% affordable housing component in developments of 20 units or more would be a good start, especially when a project is receiving major benefit from the taxpayers, such as the LRTA tax abatement, and as in the case of the redevelopment of the hospital building, historic tax credits. If financial infeasibility is an issue that can be demonstrated by the developer, the city could look to its existing resources, such as the HOME program, to direct funding to the project in a smart way that provides the most financial impact and least amount of program costs and regulatory burden. The development of new funding sources and looking at sensible development incentives may also be needed to make such an effort sustainable for the long term. The city and developers should collaborate to make an affordable housing component both second nature and workable in every proposed development. Okay, this is about West King Street. I'm skipping back to the part about the College Avenue development. The College Avenue development includes 2 proposed affordable housing developments on nearby sites, plus 1 on-site. These should be supported by this community in every way possible as the developer seeks land development and funder approvals. There will need to be advanced fiscal planning to ensure the needed public funding will be in place at the right times. But why not also include some affordable housing among the 125 and 150 apartments proposed for the hospital building and the 30-unit homeowner phases? The College Avenue development overall concept is well conceived and the developers are seasoned. I urge council to approve the rezoning request. I also ask that the city and the developers make the effort to place affordable housing into every phase of this development. Hold on. Still with me? Great. Thanks everybody for bearing with. Michelle, either Michelle or Michele Capobianco from Pine Hill Road in Lidditz. My name is, I'm gonna assume Michelle Capobianco, but could be Michele. I'm a member of Put People First PA. As our elected officials, it is your duty to make decisions that are in the best interest of our community. Voting yes on the UPMC rezoning petition is not a vote in the best interest of those you have been elected to serve. Our community, including and especially our most vulnerable residents, do not need more retail space and luxury housing, nor affordable housing that they will never actually be able to afford. This would not help Lancastrians during average times, and this will hurt us during pandemic times. Our people and economy are suffering, and rezoning the UPMC property is not a solution. How do you justify rezoning a hospital to create more retail space while hundreds of businesses are closing their doors and while our people are in need of medical facilities and community space? We demand that you vote no on the rezoning petition. We demand that UPMC either repair and open St. Joseph's Hospital with adjustments to services in order to meet the needs of the community, or redevelop to create a community space with medical and dental clinics, homeless shelter with family space and activities for children, a community garden, resource distribution and assistance, etc. This property has served the community for over 100 years, and we will continue to hold the owners of the property accountable, whether that be UPMC or another entity. Vote no on the UPMC rezoning petition. Jose Diaz from Helen Avenue in Manheim Township. Lancaster City Council must be on the side of its community. The Lancaster City Council members have a critical decision to make: to succumb to the profit-minded rezoning requested by UPMC Pinnacle, or to defy that request by keeping the hospital use zoning. This decision will define if they are with the poorest members of the community or with the big health industry business. UPMC Pinnacle is not offering any real alternative that will help to improve the living conditions of the low-income working families and the homeless community that in this pandemic era will certainly increase. UPMC Pinnacle must honor their legal character as a nonprofit. They have increased their wealth sufficiently from this advantageous condition. Now is the time to honor the privilege that the state of Pennsylvania endowed them with. The facility should stay for hospital medical use, adding further services to improve the living conditions of those most in need within the community. The City Council and UPMC Pinnacle should give serious consideration to a diversification of the facilities that will include, among others, medical dental clinics, homeless aid and shelter, transitional housing, community recreational center for families, market facilities, community garden, and a government social services office to help families navigate social services. These are recommendations made at past council meetings by members of the community, such as Put People First, among others. If you want to really help the community to rise up from poverty and to make the city of Lancaster an example of success for the nation, this can be a good start. John and Cindy Holden from the 300 block of Northwest End Avenue say, hopefully, this will be the final time we add our voice for the approval of the St. Joe's property on College Avenue from hospital to mixed use. There is an excellent proposal on the table that needs this change. There will not be a hospital at this location ever again. If it is not rezoned now, it will sit empty until it is rezoned and the current proposal will go away. We have a great neighborhood and this proposal will allow many new families to experience it. Thank you. Monty Garber and Marcella Hostetler on the 300 block of Northwest End Avenue. Dear City Council Chair and members, our family has lived on Northwest End Avenue for the past 21 years and have been concerned about the ultimate fate of the College Avenue hospital property for much of that time. We are writing to offer our strong support for the rezoning of the property to enable the proposed redevelopment of the property that would include market rate and affordable housing, as well as other businesses. We recognize the importance of quality healthcare for local residents. Indeed, our second daughter was born in that hospital in 1998. Unfortunately, this structure has not provided an effective foundation for a vital, modern healthcare facility for many years, despite numerous efforts by different organizations. Our greatest concern is that the structure is likely to remain largely abandoned, absent some alternative use for the property, such as that proposed by HDC and Washington Place Equities. Thus, we support the proposed rezoning and are happy to provide further comments if needed. Lenore Bajar Dukes from Creekside Drive in Millersville says, hello, and thank you for considering my input. I support keeping the UPMC hospital property zoned for hospital use. The closing of hospitals has been a crisis across the United States over recent years, so this petition is happening within a pattern of hospital closures and gentrification. Healthcare is not an appropriate area for land speculation, especially during a pandemic. UPMC will have to find a way to use the property that serves people's needs. They can certainly afford it, and as a tax-exempt nonprofit, they have an obligation to serve the public good. So does the City Council. I certainly support affordable housing in Lancaster and believe it can be achieved without sacrificing healthcare infrastructure. I live outside the city, but I work 3 blocks from this property. I shop downtown, and my family has received healthcare from the hospital. As someone with a stake in Lancaster's success, I recognize the importance of strong and varied healthcare systems for a city that thrives for all its residents, especially one with ambitions to grow. Now is not the time to reduce the presence of healthcare in the areas of Lancaster that are readily accessible by public transportation and walking. So unless UPMC and the city can present a plan already underway to make up for those needs, one that has the input and approval of the most vulnerable people in Lancaster, it is not appropriate to rezone this property. I also would support the city's working collaboratively to find a use for the property in line with the vision that Put People First PA has developed, preliminarily, including a medical clinic, a dental clinic, a homeless shelter with family space and activities for children, which would also help meet the urgent need for additional sites for childcare in Lancaster, a community garden for all people, a way to connect people seeking assistance with resources. I hope you will vote no on this proposal. Thank you. Jen Marie McDonald from East New Street says, my name is Jen Marie McDonald, and I'm asking you to please vote against rezoning 250 College Avenue during a pandemic. Our country currently leads the world in confirmed coronavirus cases. According to Lancaster Online, Lancaster ranked 9th among the state's 67 counties in the per capita rate of new cases in the past week. With many students in school and the holiday season upon us, we're likely to see cases continuing to rise. In the face of this kind of uncertainty, is it worth rezoning hospital space for luxury housing and retail space? What will better serve the potential needs for our community during a deadly pandemic? Peter Barber from the 500 block of West Walnut Street says, thank you for taking the time to carefully review and consider this proposal. A proposed change of this magnitude should not be taken lightly. As a lifelong neighbor of this facility, I have seen a tremendous evolution of this site in my 50+ years. I was born there. My kids were born there. Numerous medical emergencies as well as planned treatments were received there. The value of a convenient and accessible medical facility cannot be overstated. However, the delivery of medical care has also evolved tremendously. And as the most recent owners of this facility have discovered, the ability to deliver the type of care that we have all come to expect, just isn't feasible within the confines of this existing aging structure. So while emotionally it is hard to see this go, the reality is that this facility has outlived its utility as a comprehensive medical care center. Certainly, more such accessible medical care is needed for our population, and other better and more efficient locations will undoubtedly arise. I am excited for the opportunity which the current plan presents. The combination of the mixed-use development along with the affordable housing component fills other needs with our community. This ambitious plan provides a realistic and achievable development within the city and the Northwest neighborhood. Vitality will again return to the 200 block of College Avenue, and potentially hundreds of individuals will have the opportunity to move into housing that fulfills both their shelter as well as financial needs. Having listened to the presentations of both the developer and HDC, I am encouraged by the commitments both organizations have made to listen to and respond to the needs of the community, and I am equally encouraged in recognizing the organizational as well as financial capacity of these organizations to actually make this plan a reality. Josh Red from the 400 block of West Frederick Street says, good evening. I am a longtime resident of Lancaster City. I have spent most of my 15 years on the west side of the city. With the growth of Lancaster and the surrounding area, it is absolutely essential to have proper facilities to meet the needs of the people who live here. This means adequate beds and services at medical centers, programs, and centers to address and alleviate homelessness, mental health, and the other issues that affect our city. The current site of 250 College Avenue should not be rezoned at this time. If we do not have the facilities and services to adequately care for and sustain the current population now, we can only expect it to get worse. The COVID-19 pandemic is also overworking the current and only hospital in the city. The Baltimore-based WPE developers and HDC have put together a dinner menu without taking stock of what we have or making a shopping list. The proposal is trying to promise 50,000 square feet of office space. I can cite 4 locations in the city that easily offer over 60,000 square feet combined, and this does not include 40 other vacant locations. They also want to offer retail and commercial space, but there's no guarantees of what this will offer. If you haven't worked a retail job, I can let you know right now, you do not get paid a livable wage. The minimum wage is $7.25, the same since 2008. According to livingwage.mit.edu, a Lancaster living wage for 2 adults with a child is $13.76, which means they work roughly 2 weeks each month on just Lancaster rent, roughly $1,200. Currently, retail and many non-retail jobs do not offer these kinds of wages, and this means even more of their income is going towards just their rent, leaving less for other necessities and savings. COVID-19 is also causing many businesses to consider closing. With the uncertainty of what the future holds, I cannot support such a large project that offers absolutely no guarantees to the people who live in Lancaster. As the zoning stands, the current buildings can be rehabilitated to meet the needs I have mentioned. Rehabilitation to assorted medical and social services would offer many healthcare or related jobs, which tend to offer better living wages that the city needs. The current property owner, UPMC, has the financial resources to rehab the site, and they have done similar projects in other cities, including building a homeless shelter in partnership with nonprofits in Pittsburgh. I encourage the City Council to hear the voices of the city residents to make the right decision and vote against rezoning. And finally, unless I missed any, we have Dr. Antonio Kalari from Martha Avenue in Manheim Township. Dr. Kalari says, "My name is Antonio Kalari. I am a co-author of the 2015 F&M study on inequality in the city. I write to join Put People First opposition to the rezoning of the College Avenue site. I appreciate the city and the council's recent concern with affordable housing. That is a notable change in direction from the time when city government put all its effort into city center businesses and high-scale residential construction. But I think the affordable housing component of the prospected development at and around the old St. Joe's is not as strong and well thought out as it could be. If the city and council want the world to know that they are taking the cause of affordability seriously, they ought to work for areas of affordability with as much of a focus and care and comprehensive planning as they put into center city developments. This project as is does not show that level of priority, care, and thoughtfulness, and I do not think city council should settle for it. First, it is clear that if things go as planned, the majority of the development would be high-end housing, unaffordable to people with moderate income. So it is clear that the character of the neighborhood would be shaped by high-income households. The economics are such that the retail component of the development would likely be shops and offices for the affluent. In this environment, even assuming that HDC's affordable housing component were to go through, the residents of the affordable housing would find themselves living in a neighborhood that wasn't theirs. In houses maybe, but not in homes. This would be far from the type of neighborhood that the Planning Commission envisioned and recommended. A good affordable housing project should be thought of in terms not just of physical housing structures, but also and more justly in terms of proper neighborhood characteristics. Unfortunately, the junior status of HDC in the Washington Place Equities HDC partnership has resulted in a situation where the affordable housing component has not been thought through beyond its brick and mortar dimension. But the people with low and moderate incomes who would benefit from the project deserve better than that. They deserve neighborhoods of their own, not walls in which they are warehoused. I believe it is possible for a better, more fully thought out and sensitive affordable housing component to be developed, one to which Washington Place Equities itself might make a financial contribution. The Washington Place Equities representative has, after all, said that WPE values affordable housing. There are regulatory mechanisms through which the feasibility of such financial contributions could be explored, such as a transfer of development rights program. But it's clear that if council approves the rezoning request now, this possibility for a much better affordability project will be foregone. So I would urge you to vote no on the petition to rezone and to hold off until a better, more thoughtful affordability plan has been developed. Mr. Harris, did I miss any?
Actually, you did, Mr. President.
Oh, yes.
One from Jennifer Frank of Millersville. That was
Got it. On Landis Avenue?
Yes.
Thank you. Pardon me, everybody. Jennifer Frank from Landis Avenue in Millersville says, "Hello, my name is Jennifer Frank. I am a member of Put People First PA. I am a social worker and a lifelong resident of Lancaster. I am very concerned that the rezoning of this property will significantly contribute to the gentrification that is happening in our community. During the middle of a global pandemic, when people are preoccupied with staying alive and unable to pay full attention to concerns like these, wealthy gentrifiers are taking advantage of the opportunity to stake their claim in our community. The project proposed will not meet the needs of the community. Instead, it will seriously exacerbate problems of housing affordability. Affordable housing and housing that is truly affordable are two very different things. We can't say we are advocates of affordable housing and then make decisions that escalate the housing affordability crisis. Partnering with a nonprofit organization to provide affordable units will not even begin to offset the rent inflation that will result from the luxury units proposed. Let's not be fooled. It is not the poor who will benefit from this project. A gentrification project like what Washington Place Equities is proposing will escalate rents, exacerbating the already salient affordability problem in Lancaster. Projects like this push people out of their own communities. A few units set aside for lower income households are not nearly enough to even counterbalance the damage that the project will do. The current proposal will be a major net loss and the community will be worse overall. Vote no on the rezoning. This is still in your power to do. There is no rush. At least pause until the community is provided with a proposal that will meet the needs of all the people of Lancaster instead of catering to the wealthy. Did I miss any others, Mr. Harris?
You did not, Mr. President.
All right. Yeah, so that's all the comments we received ahead of time. I will ask you before I open it to public comment, if your comment was already read into the record, I would ask you to refrain from commenting again. I would ask you to begin by stating your name, the 100 block and the street you live on, and the municipality, if it's not in Lancaster City. And I would ask you to please keep your comments to the established length of 3 minutes. Ms. Strazo, are you prepared to manage time? Great. So Ms. Strazo will help you with timekeeping as per your comments.
All right. The first comment is from Tiffany. We'll add her in.
Hello, can everybody hear me?
We can hear you, Tiffany. Please go ahead.
My name is Tiffany Eggleston. I am president of the Lancaster County Homeless Union, a member of Put People First PA and the Put People's Campaign, a national call for more revival. My current address is actually in Binns Park. I was just wondering the whole affordable housing, and I'm against the rezoning of St. Joe because that means a lot and it could really help us out. But it would also help us out if maybe I reached out to at least 2 of you, if you would actually come down and sit and talk, because I'm pretty sure me and a couple of other people would love to sit down and talk. Just, I don't know, just, I vote no against the rezoning.
All right. The next comment is from Matthew Rosing.
Where's Matthew? Oh, there he is.
Can you hear me?
Mr. Rosing, yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Matthew Rosing. I live on the 200 block of West Vine Street here in Lancaster. I am the co-coordinator of the Lancaster Healthcare Rights Committee with Put People First PA. I'm also a member of the Poor People's Campaign, a national call for moral revival. I'm speaking out against the rezoning of St. Joe's Hospital as one of the tens of thousands of people who are served by that hospital every year to demand the Lancaster City Council vote against the UPMZ rezoning at this time. Regarding the moratoriums sent to the City Council, the deed restriction UPMC has put in place on the smaller hospital site is more problematic than it is helpful. It is no way guarantees affordable housing as a part of this overall development. What it does create is the following: First, it does not apply to the two separate properties we were told that would be phase one of the affordable housing project. It only applies to the small section of the main hospital site. Second, it will end after 25 years, and according to the proposal, it could take years to develop, and an occupant would need to live on said property and meet requirements for over 15-year period before they would have the option to buy the said property, thus not guaranteeing a low-income person would end up owning the property. Third, it doesn't 100% guarantee that HDC, Mid-Atlantic, or anyone else will have to build affordable housing, even on the small hospital site. If they develop the site, they have to build affordable housing. They also have the option to leave the site undeveloped. They're basically saying HDC Mid-Atlantic will apply for funding, including low-income housing tax credits to try to develop affordable housing on a small hospital site. But if they don't feel like they have enough money, they're not going to go through with it. We need to stop the false narrative that this property must either address the housing or healthcare needs of the community, when in reality we have the opportunity and community need to incorporate both healthcare and housing on this property, especially for those who need it the most. The lack of healthcare leads to health issues, which leads to job loss, which leads to homelessness, which leads to mass incarceration and a rise in poverty. We are in the middle of a global pandemic and the start of an economic depression where thousands more people in our community will join those who already are in dire need of services our redevelopment reuse vision would provide. We will continue to fight for our redevelopment reuse vision regardless of who owns the property, whether it's UPMC, known gentrifier from Baltimore, Washington Place Equities, or HDC Mid-Atlantic. City Council, you stand with the poor. You can stand with the poor and dispossessed, or you can stand with the corporations. Which side are you on, the people's or the corporations?
Thank you, Mr. Rosing. Ms. Strazo, I see Mr. McKenna. Mr. McKenna, good evening.
Good evening, Council President and councilors. Thank you for your thoughtful consideration of this important issue. I am here this evening in my capacity as president of Lancaster Equity Community Development Corp., which is a collaborative of organizations primarily based in Lancaster City who work on the expansion of affordable housing and equitable community development. The members of Lancaster Equity stand in support of the proposed amendment. We are particularly supportive of the inclusion of the affordable housing, thanks to the involvement of HDC Mid-Atlantic in this joint venture on the site. We recognize that it is in alignment with the city and county's economic development and plans for the foreseeable future. We also are pleased to see that we're increasing the supply of housing in the city where that is badly needed, but especially where at least a third of the units will be designated as affordable. Beyond that, we're particularly interested in the opportunity for this to create opportunities for wealth creation for individuals who have been historically disenfranchised. The retail spaces would likely involve a partnership with Assets, which has a long track record of creating opportunities for Black and Brown business owners to get a leg up in the marketplace, as well as the designation for several of the units to be considered as rent to own. And many of the partners within Lancaster Equity already have a track record with HDC Mid-Atlantic on another property they own, where we're currently at that 15-year benchmark and are actively working with some of the households who've occupied those properties who are now moving forward to home ownership. So I certainly understand some of the comments that people have expressed anxiety about whether or not that would happen, but I can speak to the long history that HDC has in this space and their commitment to equity. I would encourage people to read their latest strategic plan, which is really vocal and emphatic about the need for any housing strategy to have an equity lens, and that we need to make sure that there are pathways for housing for individuals who have historically been faced with many serious barriers. So while, of course, the project may not be perfect, the project is certainly an initiative that is worth supporting because it does increase the supply of affordable housing at a time when we so desperately need it. Thank you for the time.
Thank you, Mr. McKenna. Ms. Strazo, please add Mr. Baldridge, please add Tom and then Tammy and then Nick, in order. Mr. Baldridge, good evening.
Good evening. How are you, Mr. President?
Doing well, Tom. Please go ahead.
Thank you all. My name is Tom Baldridge. I'm the president of the Lancaster Chamber, and my residence is in the 1500 block of Corey Lane in Lancaster Township. Thank you all for the opportunity to share some thoughts here this evening. At your previous meeting, the Chamber invited the notion that we were supportive of this rezoning and stated some reasons as to why we think this is an appropriate project. We emphatically continue to believe that. The notion that on a countywide basis, it meets all the criteria of the Places 2040 plan in its mixed use and its density, providing what we think will be a nice revitalization to an area of our community that will invite all people of all aspects of our community in for a new living environment that I think is very important for our future. The idea that affordability is a guaranteed component of this project is an important piece, as is the mixed income opportunity that will be invited by this project. But I think what I would just say predominantly to hearing some of the concerns and comments that have been made previous to me is one has to look no further than the 50-year track record of HDC to know that they are an organization that prioritizes affordable housing every step of the way and would probably and would settle for nothing less than a project that's going to invite affordable housing and make sure that it's accommodating those most in need in this community. And because of their involvement, I believe very strongly that the City Council should act to approve the rezoning and get about this project so that we can provide affordable housing to the residents of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Baldridge. Please add Tammy to the, Ms. Rojas, good evening.
Hey, you can hear me okay?
We can hear you. Please proceed.
Okay, good. Tammy, 200 block of West Vine Street. So my name is Tammy Rojas. I'm a member of Put People First PA, and I'm on the coordinating committee of the PA Poor People's Campaign and National Call for More Revival. I'm calling in to speak out against the rezoning of St. Joseph Hospital and demand you all do what's morally just on this issue. Stand by your people and not a multi-billion-dollar global corporation. You as our elected representatives must hold UPMC accountable for their actions on how they have harmed our community and not continue to organize against your own people as many of you have since the beginning of this fight. You should not be so quick to give UPMC a pass and allow them to continue to profit off the pain and suffering of the most vulnerable population of people you represent, when you have the legal and moral grounds to hold them accountable. You all say you care about the poor and dispossessed. You claim to want to address issues of inequality. You even marched with those who were on the streets during the Black Lives Matter protests, declaring change will come. Well, this is an opportunity to show you mean what you say. Vote no on the UPMC rezoning petition. UPMC has received a $1.1 billion COVID-19 relief package. They stated in a May press release that they have $7 billion in reserve for long-term sustainability. And they recently co-wrote legislation with ex-Speaker of House Turzai that passed nearly unanimously that gives healthcare profiteers like themselves, Penn Medicine and others, $500 million of our tax money, along with control over our nursing home facilities. UPMC has both the means and legal obligation as a nonprofit charity to use the St. Joseph Hospital property in a way that truly meets the needs of the community, of which this current deal between UPMC, Washington Place Equities, and HDC Mid-Atlantic does not. because it's not addressing what was lost and gives us very little in return. Here are our demands. UPMC, you have two options. Either repair and reopen St. Joseph Hospital and adjust the services provided there to meet the community's needs, or see our redevelopment vision comes to fruition. This demand will apply to whomever owns St. Joseph Hospital. For the Lancaster City Council, we demand you vote no on the UPMC rezoning petition and stand by the people in your community and hold UPMC's feet to the fire. No matter what happens, we will continue to hold UPMC's feet to the fire, and if need be, those of the Lancaster City Council and administration as well. The choice is yours. It's time you decide which side are you on. And just to say, we won't let this place stand empty. We care too much about this property to do so. What we want is for what is right. Too much has been stolen from the poor and dispossessed. Enough is enough. Do the right thing.
Thank you, Ms. Rojas. Ms. Strazo, please add Nick to the meeting.
Hey, everyone, hear me?
We can hear you, Nick. Please proceed.
Cool. Thank you. Nick, East Lemon Street. UPMC has pinned this community's needs for healthcare against our need for housing. They have taken one need away from this community and they've made us beg for another. I'll repeat the quote I made previously at another meeting by Malcolm X, which he makes a metaphor that I still think is appropriate or apt. If you stick a knife in my back 9 inches and pull it out 6, that's not progress. If you pull it out all the way, that's still not progress. Progress comes from healing the wound that made the blow. So our demands to UPMC, either repair or reopen St. Joe's Hospital and adjust the services provided there to meet the community's needs, or see that the development vision put forward by Put People First becomes reality. The City Council, vote no on UPMC rezoning petition and stand by the people in your community to hold UPMC accountable. We must demand UPMC be held accountable for their actions and how they have harmed our community. They should not be given a pass. St. Joe's Hospital served tens of thousands every year in our community and may not have been quote unquote profitable enough for the healthcare predator like UPMC, but we can't deny the many who were served by the hospital. UPMC is a global corporation, as this has been said earlier. They have the means to serve our community and they refuse to because they are guided by profit and not the needs of the people. We must wait until we get through the COVID-19 pandemic before we give away a public resource that could help us get through this crisis. The longer UPMC still holds the property, the better chance we have of getting what we need versus more of the same gentrification and empty promises. I also believe that is worth pointing out, which I've discovered recently, which I'm shocked that hasn't been paid more attention to, is that Chad Martin joined HDC as Director of Strategic Partnerships and Community Relations back in January during this period of public outrage against about this rezoning. Of course, Mr. Martin's wife is Jess King, the mayor's chief of staff, and I'm not naive enough to think that this is the only such personal relationship between city administration and developers, but I am concerned that this has not been raised by the city administration, HDC, anyone else in city council, or honestly, LNP for that matter. At the very least, these optics are poor. At worst, it suggests that there may have been more coordination between developers and the city administration long before what was made public. There are still too many questions about this project, the history of its development, and any actual guarantees that it has to the needs of the people of Lancaster. Again, I ask you to vote no to rezoning. Thank you.
Mr. President, if I may respond to that quickly.
You may.
Thank you. I personally was aware of the relationship with Ms. King and very aware of the intentionality that took place around the specific topic. It wasn't a topic of discussion at council meetings, but I was aware of it. And from everything that I've been shown and the conversations that have taken place, Ms. King has been very particular and going above and beyond to make sure that that isn't a conflict of interest. And I do believe in her ability to do that.
Thank you, Councilor Garcia Molina, and I'm sure that Ms. King appreciates your vote of confidence. Thank you. I'm sorry, Ms. Strazo, of the three hands raised, do you recall which one appeared first?
Yeah, I believe Laura Shelton.
Please add Ms. Shelton to the meeting, or I believe it's Dr. Shelton actually, but.
That's fine. Either way, can you hear me okay?
We can, Laura. Go
Okay.
ahead.
So my name's Laura Shelton, and I live on the 400 block of State Street, and I don't have a written statement. I just want to very briefly say, it will take less than 3 minutes, that I am opposed to the rezoning of this site. I have share a lot of others' concerns that this will lead to gentrification. And I also want to say I appreciate that, I think that there are folks who worked on this whose intentions are good, but I also think that this just isn't enough to meet the needs that we have in terms of affordable housing. And listening tonight, I'm also concerned about, how affordable housing is even defined so that people are held accountable. So for now, I would urge you to take your time and wait on this and to vote no. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Ms. Strazo, yep, you've already done it. Excellent. Good evening.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me?
Yes, Mr. Snively.
Yes. Hi, Marshall
Hey, good
Snively, President of Lancaster City Alliance, also city resident, unit block of West New Street. And I'm sure the development team has shared our letter of support for this project from August, but specifically germane to this evening's meeting, I wanted to express our full support of rezoning of this property on College Avenue from hospital to mixed use. Not only is it clear that this property will no longer serve as a hospital, but this rezoning is a critical step in allowing for the important redevelopment of this vacant parcel to uses that the city, so badly needs. We have an opportunity here with two high quality, well-established development companies to form a great partnership here to achieve much needed housing on this critical site. It's no secret that there is so much demand for housing of all types in Lancaster. The city's economic development strategic plan, which has been talked about a bit tonight, Building on Strength, has a goal of 2,500 new residential units by 2030, with an emphasis on mixed income communities in the city. And we all know that, this community would support even more than this goal of 2,500. So bringing this project by Washington Place Equities and HDC, and with HDC's trusted history to fruition, brings us significantly closer to this goal, and at a scale that is appropriate for the surrounding neighborhood, while it's also adding additional office and retail space, creating an even more vibrant community for both existing and the new residents and small local businesses that assets could help bring to this site. As we stated in our letter, this project has the full support of the 50 plus partners that are responsible for implementation of the Building on Strength Economic Development Plan. We also appreciate the due diligence that this team has done in outreach to the community as part of this process over the last couple of months. This is such an exciting opportunity for the city and this neighborhood. The need for additional housing is so critical. And frankly, this is a great example of the types of mixed use, mixed income communities we should be striving for throughout the county, especially when so many communities outside of the cities are fighting projects like this. Here's one where it could be welcome, and that could really send the right message, and the city could really set in a great example. So again, I would like to offer our support for the rezoning of this property to mixed use for this very important project. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Mr. Snively. Have a good evening. Please add Ms. Winslow to the meeting. Hey, good evening, Ann.
Anne, I don't know if you know this, but you're still muted.
My name is Ann Winslow, and I'm a member of Put People First PA and the Poor People's Campaign. I'm not going to rehash all the issues that have already been raised about the opposition to the rezoning because I support them. But there are two other issues I'd like to bring up. There's been a huge debate about what affordable housing is. And according to most acceptable points, it doesn't matter where the place is or how much it costs to put the housing in place. The definition of what affordable housing is no more than 30% of the gross income should be spent on housing. With the minimum wage being only $7.25 an hour, that means a person earning the minimum wage would pay only $348 a month, and this includes their utilities. By making the rents higher, the city is making it unaffordable for the people who live and keep the city running to live and possibly even get to work because of the cost it would take to get to work. And also, when the Army Corps of Engineers came to evaluate the hospital, they stated that it would take approximately 1 week to get the hospital up and running, which would alleviate UPMC probably from any expenditure. And the noise concern that people are expressing, it would only be an inconvenience for a week. It's not only possible to bring the hospital up to code and get it running, there was an offer on the table to make it done. This issue will make it clear where the city government stands. Either they stand to protect the people and their best interests that you were elected to uphold, or desert your responsibility and moral obligation to bow down to profiteers and attempt to line the pockets of the city.
Thank you, Ms. Winslow. And then Ms. Mejia. Yep.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can. Please proceed.
Hi, my name is Carolyn Mejia. I'm the Environmental and Climate Justice Chair for the Lancaster branch of the NAACP. On behalf of the NAACP Lancaster branch and the president, Blaney Watson, who was unable to be here tonight, I bring you guys greetings. I really want to thank you guys for facilitating this conversation. I think this was a really nice show of democracy, really, being able to give our input like this. But in regards to the project, we want to report for the amount of minority contractors and people of color that are hired or that are being seeked out for this project. And that's not only an economic concern, but also environmental, because there's plenty of young people in the community who could use good jobs, homeless people, and it would also cut back on having to commute long distances, which is better for the environment. And then in regards to actually, if this project is to be voted for and it proceeds, we want to make sure that sustainable building practices are being implemented. So energy efficiency, water efficiency, waste reduction, accessibility for the community, like walkability, as well as like the living wage provisions. We want to make sure that from now on, we are more realistic with how much things cost now. We need a livable wage, and it's not $7.25 an hour. And we really want to propose the idea of using the vacant roof space for solar panels, and that would help to use a space that that's going to go empty to give back to the community and help lower the energy bills for a lot of the low income residents in the city. And it would also make sure that all these new buildings that are being built in the community are not contributing to the existing poor air quality that we have here in Lancaster. So we ask, if possible, that this important vote be tabled until a further time, at least give this time, preferably during COVID and during the stressors from the election, it's probably not the best time. And as was discussed earlier, it's not necessarily time sensitive that this vote be had now because COVID had pushed back the timeline. So honestly, I think we have the opportunity for real change here for the community, and I don't think the decision should be rushed. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Mejia. Are there any other public comments? We'll just hang out for a sec while I wait.
Council President, if I may use this intermission, this interlude, to address one of the things that has come up in the comments related to the definition of affordable housing. I just want to underscore that the LIHTC credits are very clear about meeting income tests for tenants, and Ms. Hanchin or Mr. Hicks can correct me if I am wrong, but there are 3 ways to meet this income test. At least 20% of the project's units are occupied by tenants with an income of 50% or less of area median income adjusted for family size. The second is that at least 40% of the units are occupied with an income of 60% of less of area median income. And the third is that at least 40% of the units are occupied by tenants with income averaging no more than 60% of AMI, and no units are occupied by tenants with income greater than 80% of AMI. So the discussion about affordability is very much tied to the LIHTC eligibility and the process that Ms. Hanchin and Mr. Hicks reviewed with us on one of the number of previous conversations that we had about the process in which they need to go through to prepare the application, and that application must be completed in totality in order to even receive the tax credits, and that is what starts potentially tomorrow if this were to advance. So I'll stop there, but I just wanted to clarify because the affordability as well as the deed restrictions for 25 years are key to making sure that the parcel that's located within this larger block is committed to long-term affordable housing. And the reason why 25 years is the limit is because there is an opportunity after 25 years for the residents in those units to own those properties. And that is something that I believe HD spoke to earlier as well, as an opportunity to build wealth for residents who are renting previously. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Ms. Strazo, please add Ryan G to the meeting.
Hello, can you hear me?
We can hear you, Ryan.
Hi, I just kind of want to speak to something that the mayor, I'm on 500 block of North Lime Street.
Great.
I wanted to speak to something that the mayor just discussed about the Lancaster, about the rezoning deed restriction on the property. As far as we're aware, that deed restriction isn't in place as of tonight of this voting, and that after this rezoning voting, the council have no ability to hold any sort of leverage over UPMC over that deed restriction. There will be no public methods of enforcing such a deed restriction is actually gone through the legal process and implemented, as well as they've discussed before that the affordable housing requirement is not defined at the moment. They've made requests, they've made statements saying that it would be based off the tax credits requirements, but none of that is well defined and is not taking place tonight. So we have no way of actually enforcing this so-called concession from UPMC. There is no way to, as the public, enforce these conditions on UPMC, and all these things will be taking place immediately after the vote, and therefore have no, as soon as the area is rezoned, the UPMC has full sail reason to do whatever they would choose, regardless of what promises they've made of the many symbolic concessions they've tried to make along the way. There is no real mechanism of enforcing that. And now UPMC, a multi-billion-dollar corporation, has taken away a hospital from our community is now trying to pit affordable housing against healthcare access in Lancaster and in the presence of a global pandemic. And I think it's time for council to decide that they're on the side of the people. They're not on the side of the large corporations who will make every symbolic concession they can in order to get across their real estate deals. Thank you.
Thank you.
So just Ryan, to respond, the deed restriction was signed earlier today. That has been reviewed by city's solicitor, and we understand your concerns, appreciate your concerns that once a vote happens tonight, that the city government would have no legal authority to address that. So that deed restriction is in place as of today, prior to the start of our 7:30 city council meeting. And I understand the continued concerns about the affordability requirement, and literally the funding in order to be able to build this is entirely contingent upon our ability to successfully secure the LIHTC credits. It's how Long's Home has recently been built along West Walnut Street for low-income seniors. That was through LIHTC credits. Those credits went into place, and if you would like to see the income restrictions for that property, that is available to you, as well as other HDC properties. That property that I'm giving as an example is through Presbyterian Senior Living, but through other HDC properties in terms of what affordability looks like. And I'll just say that this is one of the few opportunities related to ensuring true affordability, because we do have other developers who come and talk about affordability, but they're talking about affordability at 80% of area median income using the county data, and the county median income is $60,000 higher than it is for, I'm sorry, $20,000 higher than it is for a city resident. And so I just want to make the distinction that the area median income that we're talking about in this project is city median income, which is $40,000.
Thank you, Mayor. Were there any other public comments?
Mr. President,
Councilor Bakay?
may I make a comment before we proceed?
Yes, of course.
Which, if there's other comments or not. I would just like to say that I've appreciated all of the thoughtful dialogue, and that I would agree with the previous commenter, I apologize, I'm not sure which one, who said that, who stated about how much money UPMC has received from Federal CARES Act dollars. I agree that it's completely egregious that after all of that, they have refused to do business in our community, to serve our community, to employ people in our community, and engage in our community after all of that. And I find it difficult to understand how we would want something like that in our community. They've refused to serve us, and I believe that they aren't willing to use this site, and we don't owe them anything to allow them to continue to be here. So I just wanted to make that comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bakay. This is actually a lovely time if there are any other council comments to be made to make them. All right.
I do have a comment.
Oh, Councilor Craig, there we are.
So it's my opinion, based on the many conversations that I've had with the residents that live and work in this particular area and throughout the city as a whole, this rezoning be approved so that the project can move forward and become an asset to the city and not sit there for the next 10 to 15 years as a liability. As long as it's an asset to the city that we all love, I understand that where not all people will agree with some of the decisions that will be made, majority of the folks that I've talked to are in favor of the project. So although affordable housing is very, very important, and this project will address some of that, but far from all. But if we don't start somewhere, we get nowhere. Thank you.
Councilor Diaz, then Councilor Arroyo.
Yes, I'd like to also mention that we are still responding to the economic impact of COVID-19. Now, this project will provide much needed jobs and affordable housing. We know we have skilled contractors and workers in our community who would have the ability to have a job, especially those that have lost their jobs due to COVID-19 and so many businesses that have closed. And this is a very hard decision, but our community right now is at a standstill because of COVID-19. And I just want to emphasize that it's a very harsh decision, no matter which way any of us take. We're all trying to make sure that Lancaster stays prosper and help the community as a whole. So I just wanted to emphasize that.
Thank you, Councilor Diaz. Councilor Arroyo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to make a comment and really take the opportunity to thank not only members of the city administration and council, but also members of the public for what I think is was really a robust collaborative effort to make or to get to this point. I think this conversation has gone on for a very long time, even prior to my time on council. And as we start to see a lot of these development projects progress, this type of collaboration, this type of conversation, regardless of which way it goes, I think is necessary to make sure that the end result is something that truly benefits our entire community and not just the very few. So regardless of which way this goes this evening, I just want to take the opportunity to thank everyone for engaging in the process and making sure that their voices are heard. So thanks.
Mr. President, if I may, since we all are speaking up to this topic just because we all are passionate about it. This is an institution that's been in our community for a very long time. Me personally, I live half a block away, so I'm very much invested in the future of my neighborhood, in our city. When we just moved to the States, we were still living, the four of us, in a basement. My father had a car accident, and that hospital was the place that saved his life. And I think so many of us have so many stories where we have personal ties to the hospital and all the needs that it served for us. And at the same time, what we have before us is a decision that is multifaceted. And one of the things that I struggle in this conversation is that, yes, UPMC, we do not owe them anything, but also we need to start to change the narrative that you are either for the people for one decision or against the people if you make a different decision. I think that right now we did shift the need from medical to housing, but we are looking at jobs, as Councilor Diaz said. We're also looking at the possibility, if it remains blighted property. We're also having to consider what is the future potential and all the unknowns that we have before us. So I've been conflicted this entire time, but what I've appreciated is the community support. We wouldn't be here in this particular position if it wasn't for the continuous community that has lobbied and protested and has continuously shown dedication and a dedication for accountability. And no matter the decision today, I hope that that does continue because what we had before us a year ago, it is not at all what we have before us today. So in addition to the work that the city administration has done, I think getting to that 30%, getting to the deed restrictions, getting everything that we have before us today is a partnership of so many different pieces. And we just as council get to play a very small role where we make a vote, and that vote is based off of the best information that we have before us. And it's also based off of consensus and the many different conversations. So no matter what happens, I hope that the community, the city administration and council can move forward, still holding each other accountable, still pushing for more, but also starting to recognize the different pieces and not continue to do what the big corporations want from us, which is to be pitted against one another. That's it, Mr. President.
Thank you. Okay, before we proceed, I'll use my prerogative to take this last piece of space. First, I want to thank Put People First. This is something that they have been in conversation with council members for and the city for, and anybody they could grab a hold of and get to listen for over a year now. And in fact, for longer than some of my esteemed colleagues have been on council with me, and sort of put the lie to the notion that people don't get involved in their community when it's important to them. And they have held this council to a standard that it's not been held to in a very long time. And I think pushed us, all of us, to access certain things and to do different kinds of research and be in communication with parties we otherwise would not have been in. And so they not only deserve a thank you, but I think that they deserve ongoing recognition for their work and as a partner in the community. More than anything else, though, I do want to thank my my colleagues. I've been with this council, this particular council, for about 9 months now, and I am blown away by the level of thoughtfulness and attention that you bring. I'm blown away by some of the meeting of the mind discussions that we have had, and also, frankly, some of the arguments and disagreements that we've had. As we go into this vote, you all probably know, and as you do this too, or you receive these as well, I've gotten a number of messages just as we sit in this meeting, some of which are oriented around the number of comments in favor one way, against that way in this meeting versus in the previous meeting, whose public comment this, whose private comment that. And all I'll say is this, we've not been asked to tally the public comments and make our decision based on that. We've been asked to lead in this space. And so I hope that all of my colleagues will make their decision with the best information and the best spirit that they have available to them, because this is the most important thing that this group of 7, I think, probably has done as a council, and will be ours no matter which way it goes. So I just want to express my unqualified faith in you. And with that, Mr. Harris.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Ms. Beke?
Aye.
Ms. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Diaz?
Aye.
Mr. Garcia Molina?
Aye.
Mr. Soto?
Aye.
And President Smith-Waddell?
Aye.
Rezoning is approved.
All right, the parcel is rezoned. More discussion on this in the future, I'm sure. And I'll take the moment, since I have the mayor and Chris, to simply say, you are both people for whom I've developed a significant amount of personal affection. and you are both intimately aware of how contentious this has been in certain spaces. And aside from the sort of legal trappings and boundaries of this vote, y'all, like, forgetting the fancy language, I think part of this is that this council is offering the administration and the land development process its trust to do right by council and to do right by the community, because we are all intimately familiar with how easily good intentions can go awry. So I hope you will take that trust and carry it with you and take it with the same level of seriousness with which we offer it. All right, Mr. Harris, does that move us to resolutions?
No, we have an ordinance for first reading.
Oh boy. Administration Bill number 10, 2020, Mr. Harris.
Yes, Mr. President. An ordinance for the City Council of the City of Lancaster, amending Article 6, Planning Commission of Chapter 22, Boards, Commissions, etc. of the Code of the City of Lancaster to allow for the appointment by resolution of City Council of up to 3 alternate members to the Lancaster City Planning Commission, providing for the repeal of inconsistent ordinances, providing for the severability of the ordinance, and providing for the ordinance to take effect in accordance with Pennsylvania law. The title, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. I'll hear a motion.
First reading.
Oh.
No.
One of these days.
Oh, that's right. It's a first reading.
It is a first reading. We talked about this a little bit in the committee meeting. Councilor Craig.
Thank you, Council President. The Municipal Planning Code is the Pennsylvania state law enabling municipalities to enact their own comprehensive plan and zoning subdivision and land development and official map regulations. Among other things, the MPC also governs the conduct, responsibilities, and powers of the Planning Commission. In 2015, the MPC was amended to permit Planning Commission to have 3 alternate members in addition to the maximum of 9 regular members. The drafted ordinance aligns Article 6 Planning Commission of Chapter 22 Boards, Commissions of the City Code with the state of Pennsylvania's MPC's provision for alternate members. That's all I have.
Okay, that's pretty straightforward. Chris, do you have anything to add?
I do not. If we have additional questions, I would turn this over to Mr. Smith, who's our faithful steward for the Planning Commission. I think Councilor Craig did a nice job outlining what's before the council, but we can definitely bring Douglas in for any additional commentary or to answer questions.
Great. Yeah, Mr. Smith, if you have any additional clarifications you'd like to add.
Yes, hi, good evening, councilors. Good to see you and thank you for having me. Just to clarify, this ordinance amendment would allow the mayor and city council to appoint 3 additional members to our currently 9-member planning commission. These 3 members could be at large, so they do not have to live in any particular district in the city. This does allow us some flexibility to add members with additional expertise to the Planning Commission, including folks who may have background in engineering or land development in particular, or architecture.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Smith.
You're welcome.
Council comments. We'll hold a moment for comments from the public on this matter.
Seeing none, we will move along. So resolutions, council resolution number 42, 2020. Mr. Harris.
Resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster, Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, calling on Congress to adopt legislation to create a national infrastructure bank.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Great, we have a motion and a second. Councilor Arroyo, I believe this came through your committee, but am I remembering correctly? It was introduced by Councilor Diaz?
Yes, I can speak on it briefly, and I believe we have someone, I believe Alfeka Mutardi is actually on, who could speak on it if she wishes. So,
yeah, please go ahead.
So just briefly, this resolution is calling on Congress to adopt legislation that would create a national infrastructure bank, which would work in bringing current infrastructure in the state of good repair, including funding for broadband, water projects, new schools, and affordable housing. With that, I can pass it off to Alfeka if you would like to kind of add more to the resolution and explain a little bit more behind the National Infrastructure Bank.
Yes, I can do that. Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Okay, great. You've explained it very nicely. What this federal legislation, which was introduced into the House of Representatives last March, would be to create a national infrastructure bank to lend for infrastructure spending all across the United States. The bank would be permitted to lend up to $4 trillion to cover every bit of infrastructure everywhere. And the beauty of doing this is that no region would be subject to insufficient funds, as has been the case with the normal routes of infrastructure financing to date. The state of Pennsylvania, for example, has something like $170 billion set aside to come out of the $4 trillion that the bank would spend to cover infrastructure in your state. And oh, by the way, there is funding in there for 7 million new affordable housing units, which would be right up the alley of the discussion that you just recently had. Spending $4 trillion will create millions of great paying jobs all across the United States. We reckon at least 25 million new great paying jobs, 900,000 of which would be in the state of Pennsylvania. These jobs would pay Davis-Bacon wages, and bring people's pay scales up to a level that they haven't seen in some time in our nation's history. So it is both a way of financing infrastructure that has not happened before. We've actually had 4 of these banks in our nation's past, the last one being the Reconstruction Finance Corporation during the Great Depression, and helped us also to win World War II. But since then, we haven't had such an entity, and our infrastructure spending has fallen off as a result of this. So what your resolution would be doing would be to ask your members of Congress to support this bill in Congress to enact a new bank and to build affordable housing and broadband everywhere, and intercity refurbishments too, so that we can hook up the affordable housing to better mass transit and more rails and mass transit systems in the state of Pennsylvania, which we think would be a help. Another a big thrust of the infrastructure would be to replace all of the water piping and replenish the water infrastructure systems to get the lead out of the water and build better water systems, both at the utility level and as we're digging up the streets and replacing streets and putting in broadband and new electrical grids to replace everything at once and do this infrastructure development in a holistic fashion. So that's the idea behind the legislation. This would be an independent bank that would give out the loans for this. And in addition, we think that this would really help the finances in your state, because now that we're in a COVID crisis, we know that every state and local government's finances are really in a state of disarray because on account of so many people being unemployed, and a lot of the jobs will not come back. By hiring 25 million workers and paying them Davis-Bacon wages, we're lifting all of those workers out of unemployment, and they'll be able to then pay income taxes of their own, and that will lead to a major replenishment of your state and local finances. The same thing happened when the last time we had such a bank. So your support and urging your members of Congress to support this bank at the federal level would be very, very much appreciated. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Matardi. Any council comments? Hold for the public. Okay. Thank you, Ms. Matardi.
All right. Did you have anything else, Councilor Royal?
That is all, Mr. President.
All right. If there are no comments from council or from the public, Mr. Harris.
Yes, Mr. President. Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Ms. Baker.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Garcia Molina.
Aye.
Mr. Soto.
Aye.
President Smith Waddell.
Aye. Okay, we then move to resolution number 43. Mr. Harris.
Yes, Mr. President. A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster approving the adoption of an amendment to the Act 537 Official Sewage Facilities Plan for the City of Lancaster.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Sorry, y'all, I got minimized. So we have a motion and a second. This appears to be a pretty standard sewer module adjustment, but I could be wrong. Nope, this one's Councilor Craig.
You're absolutely correct, Council President. Municipalities are required to develop and implement comprehensive official plans that address sewage disposal disposal needs now and in the future. When a new land development project is proposed, municipalities are required to revise their official plan unless the project is exempt from planning. As of November 2019, the PA Department of Environmental Protection has been more restrictive about issuing exemptions due to the city's challenge with combined sewer overflows into the Conestoga River. These modules are often submitted. The project is conditionally approved land development plan as of July 3rd, 2020, and it's adaptive reuse of the former Lancaster newspaper building on West King Street. The existing building will be adapted to supply 45 residential units and second floor office space while maintaining ground level commercial space. Council previously approved a sewer facility plan for this project on July 14th, but it was out of date. Estimates for water sewer use. This amendment is supported by our city planning engineer staff and is more accurate. So yes, it is pretty straightforward.
All right. Council comments. Any from the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Ms. Baker.
Aye.
Ms. Craig.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz.
Aye.
Mr. Garcia Molina.
Aye.
Mr. Soto.
Aye.
President Smith Waddell.
Aye. All right, we now move on to resolution number 44, 2020, which I believe is more of the same. I'll hear a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Counselor Craig.
Didn't we miss a step there? I think
can-
Mr. Harris
I
was
can
supposed.
read the title, but it's exactly the same as the title I just read a moment ago.
Okay, perfect. Then, thank you so much. This project is under review as a land development with the city now. It will adaptively reuse the former drums, etc. commercial space and add additional building square footage to accommodate 22 residential units. The concept has been granted and certificate of appropriateness by council and zoning approvals by the zoning board. That's it.
Council comments? From the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Roya,
Aye.
Ms. Beke,
Aye.
Ms. Craig,
Aye.
Ms. Diaz,
Aye.
Mr. Garcia Molina,
Aye.
Mr. Soto,
Aye.
and President Smith Waddell.
Aye. All right, that brings us to resolution number 45, 2020. Mr. Harris.
Resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster approving a winter traffic service supplemental agreement between the City of Lancaster and the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Department of Transportation.
I'll hear a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilor Soto.
Thank you, Council President. Yes, every year, if I'm correct, this comes up and we amend it. And it's, let me get this right here. The city plows snow and ice from state streets within the city each winter, and it's reimbursed by PennDOT. This resolution amends the reimbursement agreement, allowing the mayor to sign the agreement on behalf of the city and approves for annual reimbursement totaling more than $84,000 a year, sir. That's all I have, Council President.
Thank you, Councilor Soto. Are there council comments? And from the public? Mr. Campbell.
So thank you very much for recognizing me, but Councilmember Soto explained it perfectly, exactly what this resolution is about. This is an administrative function allowing the mayor to actually sign so that we can be reimbursed at the amounts scheduled in the contract and under the amendment of the contract for us to be able to clean the streets that the state is otherwise responsible for.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Campbell. Thank you, Councilor Soto. If we have no public comments and no council comments, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Roya.
Aye.
Ms. Beke,
Aye.
Ms. Craig,
Aye.
Ms. Diaz,
Aye.
Mr. Garcia Molina,
Aye.
Mr. Soto,
Aye.
President Smith Waddell.
Aye. All right, that concludes our legislative agenda, and it brings us to the second public comment period, which is open for comments about issues that are not on the agenda. So if you've been waiting in the wings to comment, and as a matter of fact, I'm not seeing much of anybody in the attendees list, but if you've been waiting in the wings to comment, now is your time. So we'll hold here for 30 seconds. Normally I wouldn't do this kind of thing, but because it was sort of the cause célèbre over the past couple of days, big congratulations to you, Amber. I hope Doug is home safe and warm and whatnot.
Yes, he is. Thank you to everyone that helped look for him. I was like
super, super overwhelmed by how like wonderful everyone was. So he is home safe. Thank you all.
All right, I'll presume that we have no additional public comments, which moves us to the report of the mayor, Mayor Sirachi.
I did not have a report tonight, especially in the interest of time.
Fair enough. Thank you for that, Mayor Sirachi. I also do not have a report this evening, which brings us to council comments. Councilors. Councilor Diaz.
Quick comment. I just wanted to say that since we are going to be bringing forward the resolution for the Latino historic wonderful celebration for September, since we're not, I just wanted to mention that that's, you know, our Heritage Month, and, you know, for those that are celebrating maybe virtually or maybe small gatherings, I just wanted to mention that.
Great. Thank you for bringing that up, Councilor Diaz. And it's my understanding that we'll be seeing that resolution on September 22nd. Unfortunately, that will be a week into the observance of the month. Am I remembering that correctly? It's September 15th to October 15th. But exactly as Councilor Diaz says, well, you know, I'll even go a step further. Lancaster City is 40% Latinx. And so Latinx Heritage Month really is a celebration for the entire city of Lancaster because without Latino, Latina, Latinx folks in our community, there is no Lancaster, there is no Lancaster resurgence, there is no, you know, like there's no real downtown cuisine. There is no 800 things that we really value, our sense of welcome, our sense of industry. All of that we owe in significant part to our significant Latino heritage. So yeah, I'm looking forward to the resolution. Councilors, if there's nothing else, I will, it's been a long evening and frankly a long year, and I will hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Okay.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Good evening, all.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone.
Not everyone, and God bless.
Night.
Thank you, everyone. You too, Mr. Soto.
Thank you.